Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, our favorite part of the day, right here in the live studios in the Haven, which is located in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, just a stone's throw from the English Channel. We've set up this little ashram and dedicated to hearing and chanting and preaching and counseling and advising and whatever else we can do to help maintain and spread Srila Prabhupada's movement, especially the hearing and understanding of his transcendental literatures. Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Mahima Stotram by Srila Sanatana Goswami explains the Bhagavatam and why we're doing what we're doing. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Purāṇa Śrīmad-Bhāgavata Prabho Kalidvanduditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who were supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadutadayin adini chochatakada hanam muchagadachin mam premna rit kantayukspura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we reached the 21st chapter of the third canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Conversation Between Manu and Kardama. Text 1. Vidura said, the line of Swayambhuva Manu was most esteemed. O worshipable sage, I beg you, give me an account of this race, whose progeny multiplied through sexual intercourse. Purport. Regulated sex life to generate good population is worth accepting. Actually, Vidura was not interested in hearing the history of persons who merely engaged in sex life. but he was interested in the progeny of Swayambhuva Manu, because in that dynasty, good devotee kings appeared who protected their subjects very carefully with spiritual knowledge. By hearing the history of their activities, therefore, one becomes more enlightened. An important word used in this connection is parama samatha, which indicates that the progeny created by Swayambhuva Manu and his sons was approved of by great authorities. In other words, sex life for creating exemplary population is acceptable to all sages and authorities of Vedic scripture. Text 2. The two great sons of Swayambhuva Manu, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, ruled the world, consisting of 7 islands, just according to religious principles. Purport. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is also a history of the great rulers of different parts of the universe. In this verse, the names of Priyavrata and Uttanapad, sons of Swayambhuva Manu, are mentioned. They ruled this earth, which is divided into 7 islands. These 7 islands are still current as Asia, Europe, Africa, America, Australia, and the North and South Poles. There is no chronological history of all the Indian kings in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, but the deeds of the most important kings, such as Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and many others, like Lord Ramachandra and Maharaj Yudhishthira, are recorded, because the activities of such pious kings are worth hearing. People may benefit by studying their histories. Text 3. O holy Brahmana, O sinless one, you have spoken of his daughter, known by the name Devahuti, as the wife of the sage Kardama, the Lord of created beings. Purport. Here we are speaking of Swayambhuva Manu, but in Bhagavad Gita we hear about Vaivasvata Manu. The present age belongs to the Vaivasvata Manu. Swayambhuva Manu was previously ruling, and his history begins from the Viraha age, or the millennium, when the Lord appeared as the boar. There are 14 Manus in one day of the life of Brahma, and in the life of each Manu there are particular incidents. The Vaivasvata Manu of Bhagavad Gita is different from Swayambhuva Manu. Text 4. How many offspring did that great yogi beget through the princess, who was endowed with 8-fold perfection in the yoga principles? Oh, pray tell me this, for I am eager to hear it. Purport. Here Vidura inquired about Kardama Muni and his wife Devahuti, and about their children. It is described here that Devahuti was very much advanced in the performance of 8-fold yoga. The 8 divisions of yoga performance are described as 1. Control of the senses, 2. Strict following of the rules and regulations, 3. Practice of the different sitting postures, 4. Control of the breath, 5. Withdrawing the senses from sense objects, 6. Concentration of the mind, 7. Meditation, and 8. Self-realization. After self-realization, there are 8 further perfectional stages, which are called yoga siddhis. The husband and wife, Kardama and Devahuti, were advanced in yoga practice. The husband was a Mahayogi, great mystic, and the wife was a Yoga Lakshana, or one advanced in yoga. They united and produced children. Formerly, after making their lives perfect, great sages and saintly persons used to beget children. Otherwise, they strictly observed the rules and regulations of celibacy. Brahmacharya, following the rules and regulations of celibacy, is required for perfection of self-realization and mystic power. There is no recommendation in the Vedic scriptures that one can go on enjoying material sense gratification at one's whims, as one likes, and at the same time become a great meditator by paying a rascal some money. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Text 5. O sage, tell me how the worshipable Ruchi and Daksha, the son of Brahma, generated children after securing as their wives the two other daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. Purport. All the great personalities who increased the population in the beginning of the creation are called Prajapatis. Brahma is also known as Prajapati, as were some of his later sons. Swayambhuva Manu was also known as Prajapati, as is Daksha, another son of Brahma. Swayambhuva had two daughters, Akuti and Prasuti. The Prajapati Ruchi married Akuti and Daksha married Prasuti. These couples and their children produced immense numbers of children to populate the entire universe. Vidura's inquiry was, how did they beget the population in the beginning? Text 6. The great sage, Maitreya, replied, commanded by Lord Brahma to beget children in the worlds, the worshipable Kardama Muni practiced penance on the bank of the river Saraswati for a period of 10,000 years. Purport. It is understood herein that Kardama Muni meditated in yoga for 10,000 years before attaining perfection. Similarly, we have information that Valmiki Muni also practiced yoga meditation for 60,000 years before attaining perfection. Therefore, yoga practice can be successfully performed by persons who have a very long duration of life, such as 100,000 years. In that way it is possible to have perfection in yoga. Otherwise, there is no possibility of attaining the real perfection. Following the regulations, controlling the senses, and practicing the different sitting postures are merely the preliminary practices. We do not know how people can be captivated by the bogus yoga system in which it is stated that simply by meditating 15 minutes daily, one can attain the perfection of becoming one with God. This age, Kali Yuga, is the age of bluffing and quarrel. Actually, there is no possibility of attaining yoga perfection by such paltry proposals. The Vedic literature for emphasis clearly states 3 times that in this age of Kali, Kalau nastyeva, 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 there is no alternative, no alternative, no alternative than Harer Nama, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Text 7. During that period of penance, the sage Kardama, by worship through devotional service and trance, propitiated the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those who flee to Him for protection. Purport. The significance of meditation is described here. Kardama Muni practiced mystic yoga meditation for 10,000 years just to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hari. Therefore, whether one practices yoga or speculates and does research to find God, one's effort must be mixed with the process of devotion. Without devotion, nothing can be perfect. The target of perfection and realization is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that one who constantly engages in Krishna consciousness is the topmost yogi. The personality of Godhead, Hari, also fulfills the desires of his surrendered devotee. One has to surrender under the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, Hari, or Krishna, in order to achieve real success. Devotional service, or engagement in Krishna consciousness, is the direct method, and all other methods, although recommended, are indirect. In this age of Kali, the direct method is especially more feasible than the indirect, because people are short-living, their intelligence is poor, they are poverty-stricken and embarrassed by so many miserable disturbances. Lord Chaitanya, therefore, has given the greatest boon. In this age, one simply has to chant the holy name of God to attain perfection in spiritual life. The words Samprapede Harim means that in various ways Kardama Muni satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari by his devotional service. Devotional service is also expressed by the word Kriya Yogena. Kardama Muni not only meditated, but also engaged in devotional service to attain perfection in yoga practice or meditation. Again, Kardama Muni not only meditated, but also engaged in devotional service. To attain perfection in yoga practice or meditation, one must act in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on. Remembering is meditation also. But who is to be remembered? One should remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not only one must remember the Supreme Person, one must hear about the activities of the Lord and chant His glories. This information is in the authoritative scriptures. After engaging himself for 10,000 years in performing different types of devotional service, Kardama Muni attained the perfection of meditation. But that is not possible in this age of Kali, wherein it is difficult to live for as much as 100 years. At the present moment, who will be successful in the rigid performance of the many yoga rules and regulations? Moreover, perfection is attained only by those who are surrendered souls. Where there is no mention of the personality of Godhead, where is their surrender? And where there is no meditation upon the personality of Godhead, where is the yoga practice? Unfortunately, people in this age, especially persons who are of a demoniac nature, want to be cheated. Thus, the Supreme Personality of Godhead sends great cheaters who mislead them in the name of yoga and render their lives useless and doomed. In Bhagavad Gita, therefore, it is clearly stated in the 16th chapter, verse 17, that rascals of self-made authority, being puffed up by illegally collected money, perform yoga without following the authoritative books. They are very proud of the money they have plundered from innocent persons who wanted to be cheated. Text 8. Then in the Satya Yuga, the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead being pleased, showed himself to that Kardama Muni and displayed his transcendental form, which can be understood only through the Vedas. Purport. Here, 2 points are very significant. The first is that Kardama Muni attained success by yoga practice in the beginning of Satya Yuga, when people used to live for 100,000 years. Kardama Muni attained success, and the Lord, being pleased with him, showed him his form, which is not imaginary. Sometimes the impersonalists recommend that one can arbitrarily concentrate one's mind on some form he imagines or which pleases him. But here it is very clearly said that the form which the Lord showed to Kardama Muni by his divine grace is described in the Vedic literature. Shabda Brahma. Shabdang Brahma. The forms of the Lord are clearly indicated in the Vedic literature. Kardama Muni did not discover any imaginary form of God, as alleged by rascals. He actually saw the eternal, blissful, and transcendental form of the Lord. Text 9. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free from material contamination, in his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. The Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk, and his lotus face was fringed with slick dark locks of curly hair. Text 10. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in three of his hands, and a white lily in the fourth. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees. Text 11. A golden streak on his chest, the famous Kaustuba gem suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of Garuda. Purport. The descriptions in verses 9 through 11 of the Lord in his transcendental, eternal form are understood to be descriptions from the authoritative Vedic version. These descriptions are certainly not the imagination of Kardama Muni. The decorations of the Lord are beyond material conception, as admitted even by impersonalists like Shankaracharya. Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has nothing to do with the material creation. The varieties of the Transcendental Lord, his body, his form, his dress, his instruction, his words, are not manufactured by the material energy, but are all confirmed in the Vedic literature. By performance of yoga, Kardama Muni actually saw the Supreme Lord as he is. There was no point in seeing an imagined form of God after practicing yoga for 10,000 years. The perfection of yoga, therefore, does not terminate in voidness or impersonalism. On the contrary, the perfection of yoga is attained when one actually sees the personality of Godhead in his eternal form. The process of Krishna consciousness is to deliver the form of Krishna directly. The form of Krishna is described in the authoritative Vedic literature, Brahma Samhita. His abode is made of Chintamani stone, and the Lord plays there as a cowherd boy and is served by many thousands of gopis. These descriptions are authoritative, and a Krishna-conscious person takes them directly, acts on them, preaches them, and practices devotional service as enjoined in the authoritative scriptures. Text 12. When Kardama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. Purport. The realization of the personal form of the Lord is the highest perfectional stage of yoga. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where yoga practice is described, this realization of the personal form of the Lord is called the perfection of yoga. After practicing the sitting postures and other regulative principles of the system, one finally reaches the stage of samadhi, absorption in the Supreme. In the samadhi stage, one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his partial form as Paramatma, or as he is. Samadhi is described in authoritative yoga scriptures, such as the Patanjali Sutras, to be a transcendental pleasure. The yoga system described in the books of Patanjali is authoritative, and the modern so-called yogis who have manufactured their own ways, not consulting the authorities, are simply ludicrous. The Patanjali yoga system is called Ashtanga Yoga. Sometimes impersonalists pollute the Patanjali yoga system because they are monists. Patanjali describes that the soul is transcendently pleased when he meets the Supersoul and sees him. If the existence of the Supersoul and the individual is admitted, then the impersonalist theory of monism is nullified. Therefore, some impersonalists and void philosophers twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga system process. According to Patanjali, when one becomes free from all material desires, he attains his real transcendental situation, and realization of that stage is called spiritual power. In material activities, a person engages in the modes of material nature. The aspirations of such people are 1. To be religious, 2. To be economically enriched, 3. To be able to gratify the senses, and at last, 4. To become one with the Supreme. According to the monists, when a yogi becomes one with the Supreme and loses his individual existence, he attains the highest stage, called Kaivalya. But actually, the stage of realization of the personality of Godhead is Kaivalya. The oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual, and that in full spiritual realization one can understand what he is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Kaivalya, or in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is freed from material desires and fixed in spiritual realization of the Self and the Super Self, that is called Chit Shakti. In full spiritual realization, there is a perception of spiritual happiness, and that happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita as the supreme happiness, which is beyond the material senses. Trance is described to be of 2 types, sampragyata and asampragyata, or mental speculation and self-realization. In samadhi, or asampragyata, one can realize by his spiritual senses the spiritual form of the Lord. That is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. According to Patanjali, when one is fixed in constant realization of the supreme form of the Lord, one has attained the perfectional stage, as attained by Kardama Muni. Unless one attains this stage of perfection, beyond the perfection of the preliminaries of the yoga system, there is no ultimate realization. There are 8 perfections in the Ashtanga Yoga system. One who has attained them can become lighter than the lightest and greater than the greatest, and he can achieve whatever he likes. But even achieving such material success in yoga is not the perfection or the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is described here. Kardama Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul, or Krishna, and Krishna's devotees. And when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. If through the yoga system one wants to attain the stage of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, but is attracted instead to attainment of some material power, then he is detoured from proceeding further. Material enjoyment, as encouraged by bogus yogis, has nothing to do with the transcendental realization of spiritual happiness. Real devotees of Bhakti Yoga accept only the material necessities of life absolutely needed to maintain the body and soul together. They refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. They are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulation, provided they can make progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. Text 13. The great sage Kardama said, "O Supreme Worshipable Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existences. Through many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form." Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described here as the reservoir of all goodness and all pleasure. Unless one is situated in the mode of goodness, there is no real pleasure. When, therefore, one's body, mind, and activities are situated in the service of the Lord, one is on the highest perfectional stage of goodness. Kardama Muni says, "Your Lordship is the reservoir of all that can be understood by the nomenclature of goodness, and by experiencing you face to face, eye to eye, the perfection of sight has now been attained." These statements are the pure devotional situation. For a devotee, the perfection of the senses is to engage in the service of the Lord. The sense of sight, when engaged in seeing the beauty of the Lord, is perfected. The power to hear, when engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, is perfected. The power to taste, when one enjoys by eating prasad, is perfected. When all the senses engage in relationship with the personality of Godhead, one's perfection is technically called Bhakti Yoga, which entails detaching the senses from material indulgence and attaching them to the service of the Lord. When one is freed from all designated conditional life and fully engages in the service of the Lord, one's service is called Bhakti Yoga. Kardama Muni admits that seeing the Lord personally in Bhakti Yoga is the perfection of sight. The exalted perfection of seeing the Lord is not exaggerated by Kardama Muni. He gives evidence that those who are actually elevated in yoga aspire in life after life to see this form of the personality of Godhead. He was not a fictitious yogi. those who are actually on the advanced path aspire only to see the eternal form of the Lord. Text 14. Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nations. Only persons deprived of their intelligence by the spell of the deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasures of the senses, which even persons rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, there are two kinds of devotees: those who desire material pleasures and those who desire nothing but service to the Lord. Material pleasures can be attained even by hogs and dogs, whose condition of life is hellish. The hog also eats, sleeps, and enjoys sex life to the full extent, and it is also very satisfied with such hellish enjoyment of material existence. Modern yogis advise that because one has senses, one must enjoy to the fullest extent, like cats and dogs. Yet one can go on and practice yoga. This is condemned here by Kardama Muni. He says that such material pleasures are available for cats and dogs in a hellish condition. The Lord is so kind that if so-called yogis are satisfied by hellish pleasures, He can give them facilities to attain all the material pleasures they desire, but they cannot attain the perfectional stage attained by Kardama Muni. Hellish and demoniac persons do not actually know what is the ultimate attainment in perfection, and therefore they think that sense gratification is the highest goal of life. They advise that one can satisfy the senses and at the same time, by reciting some mantra and by some practice, can cheaply aspire for perfection. Such persons are described here as Hatha Medasa, which means those whose brains are spoiled. They aspire for material enjoyment by perfection of yoga or meditation. In Bhagavad Gita it is stated by the Lord that the intelligence of those who worship the demigods has been spoiled. Similarly, here too, it is stated by Kardama Muni that one who aspires after material enjoyment by practice of yoga has spoiled his brain substance and is fool number one. Actually, the intelligent practitioner of yoga should aspire for nothing else but to cross over the ocean of nations by worshipping the personality of Godhead and to see the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord is so kind, however, that even today, persons whose brain substance is spoiled are given the benediction to become cats, dogs, or hogs and enjoy material happiness from sex life and sense gratification. The Lord confirms this benediction in Bhagavad Gita. Whatever a person aspires to receive from me, I offer him as he desires. And that brings us to 8 o'clock exactly. So that's a good 40 minutes of reading. We'll start tomorrow at text 15. Could you reach me that vest, one of those vest sweaters? So here we are, waiting for the reflections of the assembled sages. Hare Krishna.
First is from Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari, first of the blocks. Thank you.
Jai Guru Maharaj.
Jai Rati Manjari Devi Dasi.
And from Sukdeo. Sukdeo.
Sukdeo. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And from Gopakanya.
Yes, Gopakanya Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, dear Maharaj, and all assembled sages, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
Jai Ho Maharaj.
Jai Ho.
And from Katie.
Yes, Katie.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to His divine grace.
And from Saksham Kumar.
Sakshan Kumar. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Jai Ho.
And Bhakta Christopher.
Jai Bhakta Christopher.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
And from Katie.
Yes, Katie.
Maharaj, the verse 12 says, quote, he satisfied the Lord with prayers, unquote. How can we pray to Krishna so he is happy with us? When hearing about all the highly elevated devotees, I wonder how to develop even a drop of their qualities, and how many lifetimes would it take me to reach that level they are on?
Well, Srila Prabhupada is extremely dear to Lord Chaitanya, so dear that his promise is always fulfilled. And when he toured around the world 14 times, picking up conditioned souls, initiating them in the Mahamantra, installing deities of Radha and Krishna, which are not different from the forms of the Lord that are being discussed here in this chapter. He prayed to the Lord. I know that my Western disciples are not very qualified in many ways in the Vedic principles and culture, but I pray that you please accept their service. So this is the difference between ISKCON and other spiritual organizations. No one could do what Srila Prabhupada did. They may speculate or may imagine that they could, or they might have, or they should have, or they would have, or they could have. But Prabhupada was the only one who did it. So Krishna is so pleased with Srila Prabhupada that whatever Srila Prabhupada promises, he sees to it that it's done. So he said, if you chant 16 rounds a day, take initiation, chant 16 rounds a day, every day without fail, for the rest of your life, and follow the 4 regulated principles, you will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. You won't have to take 10,000 years. That is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and the mercy of Lord Chaitanya's empowered devotees. And anyone who follows in Srila Prabhupada's footsteps is benefited by that mercy that Srila Prabhupada gave us, Lord Chaitanya's mercy, through Srila Prabhupada. So all these prayers can be offered to the Lord. You set up an altar in your house, like we have this altar. We set it up. There's no installed deities, but these photos are also non-different than the Lord. This is the philosophy. When you accept the philosophy and you worship the form of the Lord in these various expansions and personalities of Godhead, then you get the result. You actually get the result. So the hearing and the chanting and the worshipping that we do is not different than meditation. It was actually stated in one of the purports that hearing the glories of the Lord is the same as meditating. So practice repeating the prayers of the great souls. Then and select your favorite prayers and repeat them to the Lord. And eventually, by doing that, you'll learn how to pray to the Lord. It's a science, it's a spiritual science. And if you learn the spiritual, and you can learn the spiritual science by hearing the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and trying sincerely to understand and then to put into practice in your daily thinking and feeling and willing and acting in a way to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone can do it. Anyone. That is the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. The greatest thing. Hare Krishna.
Subbarao Rajagopal.
Yes, Subbarao.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Daily readings Ki Jai. It is reassuring to hear from your answer about the mercy of Srila Prabhupada.
Well, thank you. I have experienced it myself, this fallen, wretched soul. I have experienced the protection of Srila Prabhupada without a shadow of a doubt. I first saw him in October of 1972. Yes, that means this October it will be 50 years. So we have to become steady in our spiritual life, steady in happiness and distress, in success and failure, because this is the nature of the material world. We're in the material world. There will always be happiness and distress. There will always be fame and infamy. There will always be success and failure. So if we become steady in our devotional service, especially in chanting the holy names of the Lord in the form of the Mahamantra, and we don't give up that chanting for anything, under any condition, then we're guaranteed to go back home, back to Godhead, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. The holy name of the Lord and the Lord are non-different. So if we learn to chant the holy name of the Lord without offense, then we can see the Lord face to face in the holy name. Hare Krishna.
From Subbarao, he says thank you.
Hare Krishna.
And from Katie?
Yes, Katie.
I am fortunate to serve my Nimai Nitai and Jagannath Baladev Subhadra deities at home for the past almost 4 years.
Oh.
But I never ask them for anything. I feel shy to talk to them. I do talk to them because they are my babies, but I don't know what more can I ask them except for forgiveness of my offenses, love and guidance. I don't even know if there is something more I need.
You don't need anything more, but you've already expressed, a will to offer prayers. So I say the same thing again. If you find favorite prayers from Srila Prabhupada, from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, from Narottam Das Thakur, and these great sages, great souls, and repeat them for the pleasure of the Lord, then you will learn. Your relationship with them will awaken So we should want that. But Prabhupada used to say, first deserve, then desire. So what you're doing is very, very nice, and it's making you deserving. So my humble suggestion is that you find the beautiful prayers that are offered by the great souls and just recite them to your deities. Even if you don't know what to say or how to say it or what to offer, what to ask for. You know, they'll teach you how to ask for pure devotional service. It's like a child on a beginning bicycle. It's got trailer wheels on the side, you know. If the trailer wheels weren't there, they'd fall over immediately and damage themselves. So we're like spiritual children in the beginning, and the prayers of the great souls are like, you know, the what do they call them? Trailer wheels, you know. And once we learn the art of saying the prayers by reciting the prayers of the great souls, then we can offer our own prayers from our own hearts. That doesn't mean that we stop reciting the prayers of the great souls, but still, we want to develop a relationship with Krishna. Hare Krishna. We don't have to ask for anything. It's good that you don't ask for anything, but we can ask for pure devotional service. We can ask for the capacity to please the Lord. That's not material desire, that's devotional desire, that's pleasing to Krishna. So don't be afraid of Krishna. Krishna is very sweet and very kind, very loving, and very reciprocal. Hare Krishna.
She says, thank you for your advice, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
And from Gemma?
Yes, Gemma.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thanks for that nice explanation. Jaya Gauranga Nityananda Hari Bolo. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
And from Subarao?
Yes, Subarao.
He quotes deserve and desire. And it says Bhagavad Gita 4:11, Ye yata mang prapadyante tangs tataiva bhajamyaham mama manu vartante manusya partha sarvashaha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pritha.
Yes, now this is a very extremely important verse. Everyone follows Krishna's path because Krishna has created the whole material world. And as they surrender to them or not, it's implied in the verse, it's implied that those who surrender or approach him with love, he reciprocates with love. And those who reciprocate who approach him with indifference but appreciation, then he reciprocates accordingly. And those who approach him with anger or with derision or with other negative feelings, he'll respond with the same. It's not that he's partial, he's just reciprocating in the way that we approach him. Therefore everyone is following Krishna's path. Most don't know it, but they are. Hare Krishna. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Same time, same place, same topic as the pastimes of Kardama Muni and Devahuti and Swayambhu Manu and the Supreme Personality of Godhead continue. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.